gamers, and we are on location in beautiful downtown Peak of Serenity. Oh yeah, we're going to be doing some Monkey Brewmaster action, the master of the ale, and hopefully proving once and for all that they are actually a pretty decent tank. And some of you have been asking, are they as good as the others? They were a little bit ropey to start with while people learn the mechanics, but it's settling down now and they're proving to be one of the most powerful tanks in Mists of Pandaria at the moment. So we're going to take you through everything. We're going to take you through some talents, some gemming, some reforging, and some rotations, and all that good stuff. Not much to show you on rotation. We're going to use mostly the video for that. So that's why I've decided to come here and just have a nice bit of scenic beauty while we talk about these things. So let's jump straight into it, shall we? Our specialization, obviously, is Brewmaster. We are the tank class, the brand new tank class brought in to the game. Thanks to Mr. Pandaria. And a lot of things are named about brews and ales. They are, of course, the Brewmaster, the Drunken Monks. Let's turn off this wonderful thing so you can see our big, fat, cuddly panda. Isn't that wonderful? Let's talk to my special guest. Emma, what do you think about the big, fat, cuddly panda?
He's cute.
Good stuff.
The colour of his top.
He's got a very ugly coloured top. Yes, thank you very much. So, yeah, they're cute. They're cuddly. They roll around. They're big and fat. Of course, you don't have to be a monk. You don't have to be a panda, I should say, in order to play the Brewmaster, but you can be. So what spells do we pick up here? We get our lovely black slippers and white socks, classic Kung Fu style. They get the blackout kick. Kick with a blast of chi energy, dealing some damage, costs you 2 chi. So we better mention here, of course, our resource system is energy, very similar to a rogue, and we also generate chi, which is, of course, similar to holy power, would be the best way to describe that. It's our resource system for other spells. So some things are going to cost us energy, some things are going to cost us chi. So blackout kick is one of the things that costs us chi. We also pick up Dizzying Haze, where we throw barrels. Let me show you this thing. This is a wonderful ability to pull. We throw these barrels. Now, they don't actually cause any damage. You hurl a keg of your finest brew. I don't recommend anybody throwing away your finest brew, but whatever. Reducing the movement speed of all enemies within 8 yards and deals a high amount of threat. Afflicted targets have a 3% chance to have their melee attacks misfire and strike, causing themselves damage for 21,000. So no, not everything can be affected by that. But still, it's a very, very nice debuff, especially for doing insane amounts of trash damage. Breath of Fire is our AoE spell. Costs us 2 chi as well. So you have one spell which is a single target, which is the Blackout Kick. I'm going to talk about Shuffle later. And Breath of Fire, which is your AoE one. You breathe fire from your very poisonous ale. And if Dizzying Haze is on the target, they will burn for an additional 14,000 damage over 8 seconds. So you apply a nice burning dot as well. Our first defensive cooldown we're going to talk about is Guard. Costs 2 chi. You guard against future attacks, absorbing 50,000 damage. So this is essentially a shield that you stick up over yourself. Any heals you apply to yourself while guarding are increased by 30%. Something else worth noting. There are a lot of other spells. Obviously, this is a new class and people are going to be sort of unfamiliar with it. So I'm going to skip through briefly. So while I'm talking about things with talents, you understand where I'm coming from. We gain Avert Harm, which is one of our raid cooldowns, a 3-minute cooldown. 20% of all damage, party or raid members within 10 yards, so note a very short range, are redirected to you for 6 seconds. The damage received through Avert Harm can be staggered. Avert Harm is cancelled if you reach 10% or lower health. So this is a cooldown you can blow during a huge AoE phase of a boss fight, and it'll start redirecting all these spells towards you. If you're getting a ton of healing, then you should be able to absorb all that healing. So it's pretty cool. So it's a 20% damage reduction for all these people. Blackout Kit we spoke about, and Breath of Fire. Chi Burst is a talent we'll talk about. Clash. I want to mention Clash. This is the worst ever mobility charge style mechanic I have ever seen implemented into World of Warcraft. It's absolutely terrible. I hate it in all ways. It's got an 8 to 40 yard range. You and the target charge each other, meeting halfway, then stunning all targets within 6 yards. The issue with this, of course, is if you're mostly going to be using this in a 5-man, where the mobs can be dragged. It's similar to Death Grip. Bosses and stuff cannot be clashed. If you can't Death Grip them, you certainly can't clash them either. It pulls mobs away from packs. That is just frustrating and annoying. It's okay if you've got a caster, that's fine. If you're going to suck the caster out and let the physical mobs come out. But there are rarely packs anymore that just have one caster in. That's sort of a Cataclysm style model that doesn't really exist. So I'm very disappointed in Clash. Crackling Jade Lightning is a ranged sort of lightning attack, a little bit sort of Star Wars-esque. Not overly useful, gotta be said. It does generate chi, so if you're having to be out of range for whatever reason for a significant amount of time, Crackling Jade Lightning can generate you some chi for when you get back into action. Detox eliminates all ailments from friendly target, removing all harmful poison and disease effects. There are a couple of instances that have a ton of diseases. One of the ones I'm going to show you in the video has a ton of diseases. Detox there, reducing a ton of cooldown on yourself. Still have that binded. Do not think that cleansing is a healer-only aspect of the game. Absolutely not. Diffuse Magic is a talent. I'm going to talk about that soon. You get Disable, similar to a hamstring. You disable a target's movement speed, reducing them by 50%. Blah, 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 blah. The duration of Disable will be refreshed if the target remains within 10 yards of the monk. Pretty cool. Dizzying Haze we spoke about. Elusive Brew. Okay, when you get attacked, you're going to start getting stacks of Elusive Brew. Now, this will stack pretty quickly, depending on what type of mobs you're fighting. Especially if they're melee mobs, it'll stack pretty quickly. This is one of the things we have to manage. One of the things you're going to notice about the monk is you have to manage so many things. It's a lot of spinning plates. If you are very into managing and micromanaging things, or maybe you've been playing a lot of pet classes in the past and you want to give tanking a try, this actually works kind of well. There's a lot of micromanagement involved. Elusive Brew is one of those. So you're going to gain stacks of Elusive Brew. Then you can fire this off with Elusive Brew, and that will then give you a huge amount of dodge. Okay, increases your chance to dodge melee and ranged attacks by 30% per 1 second of stack of Elusive Brew. Now, instinctively, you're going to try and say, well, I need to stack up quite a few to get a good benefit out of that. Absolutely, that's not the case. You use it when it's necessary. If you have a ton of mobs whacking you that are going to die pretty quickly, and you only have 2 or 3 seconds of Elusive Brew, that'll be 2 or 3 stacks, it's a good time to fire it. You're going to get a great benefit from dodging a lot of mobs that are about to die. So be a little bit picky on that. We get Expel Harm, which is a heal, and also does damage back to mobs that you're targeting and generates 1 chi. If you're not at 100% health, Expel Harm is a wonderful thing to fire off. It costs the same amount as our jab. Fortifying Brew is essentially your shield wall ability for your tank. Turns your skin to stone, increasing your health by 20%, your stagger amount by an additional 20%, and reduce damage taken by 20% as well. Does a lot of things. Also reduces bleed damage, okay? But that's from a glyph, and I'm going to talk about that soon. Grapple is your disarm. Guard we spoke about. Healing spheres are literally healing bubbles that you can put down, and you walk through them and you'll gain some healing. Nothing special about those particularly. Zuwen is a talent. We'll talk about that soon. Jab is your base chi generator, okay? Jab and Expel Harm are your base chi generators. So you can see Jab costs 40 energy. Expel Harm also costs 40 energy. So that's why we use Expel Harm if we're not at 100% health. It's just extra free healing and we still generate the chi we're trying to get. So Jab is your bare bones, bare knuckle, getting down. It can be replaced by things like Clobber, have the same name, depending on what weapons you happen to have equipped. Now, Keg Smash. Keg Smash is important. This is one of the spells that you're going to be wanting to keep on cooldown and prepare for. It also costs 40 energy, but this thing generates 2 chi. So we get 2 chi for the price of 1 compared to Jab. So Keg Smash deals 26,000 damage to up to 3 nearby enemies within 8 yards, so it affects everything. Some people like to compare this to Hammer of the Righteous for the prop paladins. It also drenches the target in your Dizzying Haze, and applies Weakened Blows effect, which is what we're really after. Weakened Blows demoralizes the target, reducing their physical damage dealt by 10% for 30 seconds. So you're going to want to keep spamming this on cooldown, even on single target mobs, okay? Even on your bosses. Keg Smash not only gives you 2 chi, which allows you to do a lot more stuff, but also is going to reduce their physical damage dealt by 10 seconds. So it's a really important spell that we're keeping on cooldown. Legacy of the Emperor is your buff, increasing strength, agility, and intellect by 5% for the whole raid. We're not worried about paralysis. Provoke is your taunt. If you're wondering where taunt is, it's called Provoke. It looks like an angry panda with a burning red eye, a Sith Lord panda. Now, Purifying Brew. This is where we should talk about stagger. Obviously, monks don't block. Okay, they don't block or anything like that. They don't have that. What they have is the ability called Stagger. Okay, let me see if I can find where Stagger is and see if I can give you a... It's not in there. Let me explain Stagger to you. Stagger, when you get hit, has a chance to cause Stagger. Now, what Stagger will do is take 50% of the damage you just received straight on the face, okay? You're going to take that bare knuckle style straight on the face. But the next 50% is actually going to be turned into a dot, which then starts ticking on you. This is called your stagger. Now, this will stack up. So the more damage you take, the higher your stagger amount will be. This is just a constant dot that is ticking away on your monk. You will also gain a graphic, which is either green, yellow, or red. This is a visual indication of how much stagger damage you're taking. Now, this is the game deciding that. And of course, ballers like to pick and choose what their stagger will be. Purifying Brew costs 1 chi and instantly purifies all of the staggered damage. and has a 1 second cooldown. So you're going to need to decide, is it worth you getting rid of all this staggered damage? In most 5-mans, you're rarely going to see your stagger go into the yellow zone. At the green zone, it's probably not worth worrying too much about Purifying Brew unless you're absolutely anal about your defensive abilities. If you're a total analist about it, then sure, spam away Purifying Brew all you want. Overall, that's actually going to leave you weaker due to how this class works. Once you're in the yellow zone, good time to start getting rid of your stagger damage. Purify that brew off, get rid of that dot, you're just taking a ton less damage. And if you go into the red, you will actually gain a nice visual power auras effect in-game that says you are in the red stagger damage, you are staggering a ton of damage, which means a really nasty dot is ticking on you. Get rid of it. Use your Purifying Brew. Only costs 1 chi. Very easy to use. So some people are very spammy with this. I like to wait till at least in the yellow zone before I go ahead and play with that. Purifying Brew, very, very important though. You need to be very aware of that. You're going to be using it plenty in your raids. Plenty, plenty. Roll and stuff you'll know about. Roll is just your mobility spell. Very nice to move around. Spear Hand Strike is your interrupt. Now Spinning Crane Kick, this is your AoE ability. Now this only works when you have sort of 5, 6, 7 mobs plus, okay? It's going to start spinning around doing tremendous amounts of damage. Pretty cool. Spinning Crane Kick, you spin around, do 5,000 damage to all nearby enemies over 0.72 seconds. Generates 1 chi if it hits at least 3 targets. It's not as effective as using Breath of Fire and using normal cooldowns until you start getting 5 or 6 mobs. It really isn't. During Spinning Crane Kick, you can continue to dodge and parry, so it doesn't lose your defensive capabilities while using Spinning Crane Kick. Some people like to be a bit spammy with this. It's not ultimately effective to just get 3 mobs and start Spinning Crane Kicking around the room, despite how cool it looks. It's a very nice ability when you get a ton of mobs. It really is. Your Stance of the Fierce Tiger is your DPS stance. You're not going to worry about that, but we are going to be using Stance of the Sturdy Ox. Reduce damage taken by a flat 25%, increases energy regeneration by 10%, reduce the chance to be crit, increase your stamina by 20%, and allows you to stagger damage. And there we go, your stagger, you shrug off physical attacks, causing 80%, sorry, not 50, of the damage to happen instantly, and the remaining 20% to be divided over the 10 seconds. So I got my numbers slightly wrong there, but you can read about stagger in your Stance of the Sturdy Ox. The effect is still exactly the same as I described. Your statue is your Black Ox statue. The main aspect of this is every time the monk deals 286,192 damage, the Black Ox statue will cast Guard on an injured party or raid member within 40 yards, absorbing 50,000 damage lasting 30 seconds. This effect cannot be cast onto the monk. So when we get into a fight or even a tricky situation in a 5-man, throw down your statue. Because doing 286,000 damage is not difficult at all. It really is not. And that guard turns into some serious support for your raid or party. It does work wonders, especially when you're being very choosy about when you use it. I use it a lot more on trash than I do on bosses. On trash, on certain very tricky pulls, if I'm pulling a ton of mobs, throwing down a Black Ox statue, I'm going to be churning out so much damage from my Breath of Fire, my Spinning Crane Kicks, and so on and so forth, that I'm going to be throwing guards out on absolutely everybody and helping out that healer more than you can imagine. A brilliant little spell. Tiger Palm, you instantly attack with the palm of your hand. Very much, everything is very Kung Fu based. Also grants you Tiger Power, causing your next attacks to ignore 10% of the enemy's armor. Stacks up to 3 times. Notice it costs nothing for the Brewmaster Monk. This is a free spell. So while you're managing your chi and your energy, you will have moments of downtime. You spam your Tiger Palm in between there until you can either jab, expel harm, or keg smash, or use another chi, okay? Very, very important that you do that. Touch of Death, you'll know what that is. Everybody's heard of Touch of Death. Moving on, I just wanted to talk briefly, not about Transcendence. I didn't want to do that. Zen Meditation. It reduces all damage taken by 90% and redirects up to 5 harmful spells cast against party or raid members within 30 yards. It lasts 8 seconds. Being the victim of a melee attack will cancel this meditation effect. So when you're off tanking, and your other tank has taunted and some big spell is happening, Zen Meditation is a very nice, powerful cooldown, reducing all damage taken by 90% while certain things are going on. So again, another nice little raid tool. Remember, this is 30 yards range on this one and redirects spells. It's so nice, really good. Be aware of how it works and then you can use it. One of the most important levels you're going to meet is about level 36. You're going to pick up Brewmaster training. If you're level 90, you'll have already passed this, but this is where things start to change with your spells. This is when Tiger Palm becomes free, and Blackout Kick gives you Shuffle. After you Blackout Kick, you gain Shuffle, increasing your parry chance by 20% and your stagger amount by an additional 20% for 6 seconds. So powerful, guys. While Fortifying Brew also increases your stagger amount by 20% while active. You're going to want to try and maintain as much uptime of Shuffle as humanly possible from your Blackout Kick. That's the next thing you need to manage. Not only your Elusive Brew, managing your focus, your energy, managing your chi, and making sure you're using Keg Smash and cooldown and so on and so forth. You're also going to want to make sure you're maximizing the use of Blackout Kick to gain parry. It is very, very important, okay? You want to keep Shuffle up as much as possible. It's just another extra thing to throw in. Like I said, a lot of micromanagement coming from this class. A lot of micromanagement. You want to be very much aware of that. Let's move around. While Desperate Measures is another passive you should be aware of. While at below 35% health, your Expel Harm has no cooldown. It's still going to need that energy though, so be aware that if you're trying to spam it and get jabs on it, you're not really going to be able to do that, which is very, very important. And you also gain Wade the Monk, Vengeance is all the good stuff there. Swift Reflex is increasing your chance to parry by 5%. Whenever you parry an attack, you reflexively strike back at the enemy for 970 damage. Be aware of that as well. Power Strikes is a sort of passive talent, which is something you need to be aware of. There's one more I'm looking for. We're looking at Brewmaster training again at level 36 ability. It grants you the ability with your Tiger Palm. This is why I was telling you to spam your Tiger Palm whenever you can. It no longer costs chi, but when you deal damage with Tiger Palm, the amount of your next guard is increased by 5%. Lasts 30 seconds and stacked up to 3 times. So you want to be using that guard when that thing procs. It will light up like a son of a bitch. You will know exactly when to use it. It's on a 30-second cooldown, so when you fire that bad boy off, you want to make sure you're getting the best use of it. And if you're in a tricky situation, you want a big sturdy guard, a great way of coping with that is to fire off a couple of Tiger Palms, get that guard increased, and then fire it off. Now remember, guard does cost chi, and Tiger Palm doesn't generate chi. So another thing to micromanage there, but don't panic when you're in this situation. So that's a brief overview of the spells and stuff for the monk. So now you've got a general idea of what we're going to be talking about. Let's talk swiftly about the talents. There's not great talents for the Brewmaster by any means. There's one particular tree we want to look at. Your first tree is some sort of movement increased ability. Momentum tends to be what people roll with, is to get one big... Every time you roll, your movement speed is increased by 25% for 10 seconds, stacks up to 2 times, so you get a nice movement speed every time you move around. Or celerity to get an extra charge of roll, so you can get to somewhere very, very quickly. Whichever you need for which encounter, that's your choice. The next one is some sort of self-healing. Now, Blizzard's openly said they did not want Brewmasters to be self-healing. There should be another choice in here then, shouldn't there? Let's be honest. But they haven't really come out and said that. They just said they do not expect the Brewmasters to be using any self-healing. Use whatever you wish. Chi Burst is again a self-heal that's going to cost you chi. This is the problem with these. These cost chi, and our things that we use on chi, such as increasing our parry amount and stagger by 20% with Blackout Kick, are far more effective than these crappy heals that we'll get out of here. But they do heal other people, so that's something to bear in mind while we're off-tanking for sure. So be aware of that and pick whichever you want. When it comes to Power Strikes, this is going to generate you extra chi in your next ability. Ascension shouldn't really be a choice at all. You should be able to manage your chi effectively. If you need Ascension, you're probably not using your chi effectively by any means. You shouldn't need this. So your choice will either be Power Strikes or Chi Brew. Chi Brew is nice if you want to instantly restore all your chi and do some sort of really powerful defensive ability. I like Power Strikes. There's so much to manage with the monk that getting the extra chi from Power Strikes just allows this constant influx of smooth damage intake from using all my abilities. I really like that ability. I always try and make sure I stay around 2 chi, therefore if I Keg Smash, I'll get a Power Strikes proc. I'm not wasting chi. Wasting chi is obviously pretty bad. Your next ability is some sort of CC ability. You get an extra range on paralysis. You get the charging Ox Wave. A mighty Ox effigy rushes towards 30 yards in front of you, stunning all enemies within its path. Leg Sweep tends to be the much more beneficial one for tanking. Let's be honest. You knock down all enemies within 5 yards, effectively stunning them. So it's Shockwave, essentially. This is just Shockwave on a 5-yard range. You need to be aware of that. Shockwave on a 5-yard range. Very nice for your 5-mans. This is where things get interesting, okay? This is our big defensive tree. So we get healing elixirs. Anytime we drink from a brew or a tea, you gain 10% of your total health. This effect cannot occur more than once every 15 seconds. This is a really nice ability if you're doing something like constantly having to purify a lot of heavy staggered damage. However, dampen harm, 1.5 minute cooldown. You dampen the damage from the most harmful attacks done to you. The next 3 attacks within 45 seconds that deal damage equal to 10% or more of your total health are reduced in half. Very nice for bursty physical phases. Let's think about the Emperors. The Will of the Emperor, after you've done the big dodge phase, boom, throw a dampen harm down. You're going to really reduce that smashing in the face damage that you tend to take from those bad boys. Got its uses. Diffuse Magic is what I roll with in my 5-mans. Reduce all spell damage taken by 90%. It's almost an AMS and clears all magical effects on you, reversing them back to the original caster if within 40 yards if possible. That's if you've been dotted by various mobs and stuff. Now, not everything can be reflected, that's for damn sure. Ask any DK who's been playing with Dark Simulacrum, and you'll see that that's not always possible. But Diffuse Magic or Dampen Harm, physical or magic. Dampen Harm does work on magical attacks, something you need to be aware of. However, remember, it's not as powerful as Diffuse Magic for straight up magic, but Dampen Harm does work on magical spells. Your level 90 talents are disappointing for the Brewmaster. Disappointing. Rushing Jade Wind is something pretty nice if you're doing some AoE. You summon a Whirlwind Tornado that travels 30 yards in front of you, dealing 21,000 nature damage to all targets in its path and increasing damage taken by your spinning crane kick by 30% for 8 seconds. With a Brewmaster, it also causes shuffle when cast. It's got its uses. There's no doubt about that. It definitely has its uses in massive AoE phases. There aren't that many huge AoE phases anymore in Mists of Pandaria where it would be worth me taking this. I really like Invoke Zuen, the White Tiger. With Brewmaster, if you're a Brewmaster, Zuen will also taunt the target. This thing will effectively tank 5-man bosses for you for a long-ass goddamn time. Zuen doesn't go down without fighting, let me tell you, and he does a shitload of damage. And in raids, our damage is not trivial. It's not trivial, and we're probably not going to want Rushing Jade Wind. Therefore, if you're definitely raiding, Invoke Zuen is going to be beneficial to you. Chi Torpedo is, again, a charge and a roll movement. These are really disappointing for Brewmasters. There's nothing there that I really, really like. At all. Zuen seems to be... Well, Zuen does some damage. That's it. In a raid, Zuen does some extra damage, which is pretty cool, I guess. You know? And in 5-mans, he'll effectively tank the boss for you after you've got your vengeance up. Feel free to set Zuen on the go. And if you get a really nasty pull, go ahead and set Zuen out there. He'll take some of the big heavy-hitting mobs off you. He's pretty cool at that. So it's a nice defensive cooldown in a 5-man. In a raid, it's essentially just free damage. Rushing Jade Wind is not that useful in a raid at all, because you're very rarely going to be spinning crane kicking in most raids. And Chi Torpedo is pretty garbage in itself. All these level 90 talents need a little bit of a work. They need a definite look at. So then Zuen tends to be the most favoured for raids. That's all I'm going to say to you, but they're disappointing overall. Let's look at our glyphs. Now, the 3 main glyphs you're going to be rolling with are things like Glyph of Stone Skin. This glyph is absolutely awesome. When you're using Fortifying Brew, all bleed damage taken is reduced by 20% while active. Anybody who's raided the Stone Guard, Normal or Heroic, will know exactly how powerful that is. But again, it relies on actual bleed damage being taken. The idea is they don't want too many dots ticking on you. You've already got an extra dot than other tanks with Shuffle, with Stagger. So this will reduce extra bleed damage. Very powerful on certain accounts. Stone Guard being the main one right now. Stone Guard reducing that bleed damage down by 20% is always very nice. Glyph of Breath of Fire. When you use Breath of Fire on targets afflicted by a dizzying haze, they become disorientated for 3 seconds. I like this for my 5-mans. I've been rolling a lot of 5-mans with my monk, and it just reduces all the damage while I'm doing massive AoE. It's pretty cool. And Glyph of Spinning Crane Kick. You move at full speed while channeling Spinning Crane Kick. Now, this is a 5-man setup. This is not what I would recommend you take for raids, besides Glyph of Stone Skin. Let's look at what we would do for raids. I would certainly be looking at Glyph of Fortifying Brew. Your Fortifying Brew reduces damage taken by an additional 5%, but increase your health by 10% rather than 20%. This is very nice. We've always talked in the past, I guess, especially other tanking classes, how weak it is to have just flat out extra HP these days. It's not the best. Therefore, this glyph is really, really nice. Guard is cool as well. Increase the amount your guard absorbs by 10%, but your guard can only absorb magical damage. So that's something you need to be aware of on heavy magical fights. So nice, because now we're reducing a ton of magical damage. A ton on a 30-second cooldown. Very powerful in the right situations. A little shout out to Leer of the Ox. This is an extra ability you will gain. Your rock statue stirs hatred in the target, reducing their movement speed by 50% and causing them to attack your black ox statue for 8 seconds. The statue must be within 40 yards of the target. It's a redirect. You can redirect things to your statue and get them to attack it, which is always nice. Really, really cool. So again, some choices there for raids. For raids, it's very difficult to say that you wouldn't take Fortifying Brew and you wouldn't take Guard when needed. You definitely want Stone Skin. But more than likely, you're going to be rolling around with Fortifying Brew as 100%, and then you get to pick and choose whatever the hell you want, which is the idea with Glyphs. Is nothing's mandatory, which I really quite like. Very cool. Let's talk about your gearing. This is a long video, I know, but I want to make sure you understand what the hell is going on with the monk. Now, again, we're rolling with the new tank style, where we want hit. 3, 2, 1. Now, again, we're rolling with that new tank style, which is getting hit and expertise capped. This is because we need things like Blackout Kick to be proccing Shuffle. We need to be generating a lot of chi in order to keep up our debuffs and our other spells, which means making sure we make contact is very important. As such, haste is important, okay? Increases our energy regeneration. So your priorities for the monk are agility. Agility is overwhelmingly powerful. Hit and expertise hard caps. You want as much expertise as you can get rid of that parry. As you see, I'm nowhere near. You're going to be gemming for expertise. Yes, you are. You're going to be gemming things like Agi expertise, haste expertise. Very important. Make sure you've got enough stamina, which you should have from standard talents, in order to simply survive 2 hits from the boss. After that, you want to get your hit and expertise up, and then your haste. We are really not too bothered about dodge and parry. As sad as that is, again, with like the Prot Paladin, even your Meta Gem, using the Agile Primal Diamond is more effective than using a Stamina Armor. We are just not that kind of tank. We have very, very low armor. Really low armor. So getting that extra bonus from the Meta Gem is not worthwhile. Your stats are pretty simple. Hit and expertise to cap. Then get your haste up, and that's what you need to be focusing on. It really is. Get some crit after that. Don't worry too much about your mastery. So you can see on the Reforging here, it's all mastery, hit, mastery to expertise. Getting those hit and expertise capped, and where we can, get some haste up there as well. Crit to hit, getting expertise, all that kind of stuff. Very, very important. Some items not reforged yet that are new items from the dungeons I've run. But those are your stat priorities, alright guys? So I'm going to jump into the 5-man now and show you how this all plays out. Alright ballers? You take it easy.